If you are being made redundant or if you have been redundant, this video is for you. I'm going to tell you my story and share a few lessons that I've learned. If you're trying to navigate a corporate job, hopefully this will be helpful to you. I got fired and it was the best thing that happened to me. Let me tell you why. So, let me back it up a little bit. I received an email a few weeks ago and it was in the middle of the night. So, I woke up to go to the bathroom, and I usually never check my phone during the night, but I saw an Outlook notification. And the second that I saw that notification, I knew in my gut that I was getting fired.
Fuck.
Let me back it up a little bit so we can get to the beginning of the story. I work for a big financial firm in the UK. Recently, we've been hearing rumors and news that they're gonna let some people go. But obviously, as you know, with these things, you never know until you hear the actual news. So I saw that email the minute I opened it. I knew, like, I had a gut feeling. I was like, oh, I'm going to be one of these guys. And it was very vague and super sugar coated and ambiguous, as these things usually are. Just to give you a frame of reference, the subject line read changes within our team. And if you know anything about corporate environments, that this could mean anything. But based on my experience and the things that I've seen over the years, especially since last year, I knew that this meant redundancy and we're getting fired. I remember it exactly. I received that notification at 5:48 and it was too early to call anyone. So obviously I had to wait. The funny thing is, I wasn't mad or nervous. I had a lot of emotions, but it wasn't in a negative way. It was a lot to process, but at the same time, I had such a clarity. I haven't had this type of clarity for a few years. I waited a couple hours and I thought, okay, maybe during the official hours, I will call one of my friends and see if they've heard anything. So sure enough, at 8:37, my colleagues called me and we talked for a while, for about 20 minutes or so, and he was very nervous. He's quite a bit younger than me and he is a graduate in the company. Obviously, he had some concerns, and I reassured him that he's going to be fine. He's a grad and he's like early into his career, and hopefully, he will have a long career and everything's going to be fine and things like that. And we hung up. I logged in and messaged my boss and said, do you know anything or who's getting redundant? Because obviously he had some news. He said, let me get back to you. We all heard this news and we have all received that email. And sure enough, a few minutes later, I received the team's invitation.
Fuck Microsoft!
And the funniest thing about that was the title. So, one to one organizational changes. And we all know what that means. The corporate environment just has a way with words and often sugarcoats everything to oblivion. And you're definitely going to get diabetes just looking at those words. So, yeah, we had our one to one. This is just the consultancy. So we're gonna have another meeting in 2 weeks. Until then, nothing's decided. We're just gonna see what that means and what the company needs to do and things like that. So we had this brief conversation. I'm assuming that's because of the laws and things like that, that a corporate tries to cover themselves from things like an employee suing them over wrongful termination. And he said, take this time, take the rest of the day, obviously, to reflect and blow off some steam and log back in tomorrow. I was like, yeah, right. Obviously, I'm going to log back in. Absolutely. So, in the midst of it all, I was thinking, how did I end up here? And I was just reflecting on all the decisions that I've made to get here. And I think that's obviously a natural standard response. It's just human nature to think about what's behind door number two, obviously, because there was a series of decisions and there's always at least two paths. I went down path number one, and now I'm wondering what was behind door number two. It's odd, but so yeah, a couple weeks later, which was a few days ago, we had the second meeting, and so I just sat through that brief 10 or 15 minute conversation where my boss read the script of whatever they had and went through all the things, the standard corporate way of firing people. So I wasn't gonna log back in, and the remainder of my time I wasn't gonna be working my bullshit job. Luckily, I hadn't spent any of my holidays this year, so I had some holidays and some time off that I could utilize to my advantage. So I just booked the remainder of the calendar so I don't have to sit there and suffer through the rest of this time. So the way this works is that I had a couple of weeks or 2 3 weeks to still log in and be at work, and then starts the displacement where you be are on something called garden leave. And obviously, the good news is that I am still getting paid, and there will be a redundancy pay, and I'll get paid for those 3 months until I exit the company. During this time, you can obviously apply for jobs internally, and if you are successful, you can move on to the new position as a redeployee. The topic of this video is to share my journey and my experiences and lessons learned, essentially things that I wish I'd done differently, or maybe things that you should know so you don't get blindsided like I did. The first thing is more money isn't always better. And what I mean by that, obviously, more money is always better, but the people that you're working with are equally as important, if not more important. I personally chose this job because of the salary and the benefits, and overall, it was the far better choice for me financially. So I chose this job solely because of getting paid significantly more than the alternative. And I think that was my mistake. What I'm trying to say is that just making a decision solely on one factor, be it financial or location or whatnot, is not the smartest choice. So it's always good to consider all the aspects and all the different elements that comes into factor when you're choosing a job. If I was to do it over, I would choose a job that I liked more, or I had a better potential in terms of career and working with people that I actually like and enjoy, and in an industry that I want to work in. And at the time, it was the right choice, to be fair. But in the long run, it could have been better if I chosen the alternative. That brings me to my next lesson. When you're choosing your next job or your next stage of your career, consider something that you actually want to do, or you feel like this is what helps you grow or progress, as opposed to just choosing something for the financial benefits or short term gains. And doing that personally made me complacent. And that's the second point that I have. Don't get complacent. If you're just coasting at your job, you're replaceable, period. Obviously, with the rise of AI and technology and the exponential growth of AI and automation, a lot of the jobs that we have, namely technology in the, especially in the financial sector and technology in general, lots of these jobs are gonna be eliminated in the near future. So within a few years, a lot of the jobs that coding or lots of these office jobs are redundant. We no longer need people to do those jobs. Maybe there's still human elements, but it'll be significantly less than what it is today. So don't get complacent. And that brings me to my next point: learn new skills. If you're not learning or if you're not progressing, you're moving backwards, especially with the rapid rate of technology growth and things moving so fast. So if you're not growing with it, and if you're not ca- up to date, if you're not catching up, you're just moving backwards. And in a short few years, you're going to be irrelevant on the job market. And that brings me into my next point, which is making yourself invaluable. Having skills is important, obviously, but how you're using your skills is much more important. So you could be the person that follows instructions, or you could be the person who takes initiative as opposed to just following instructions. So having autonomy and figuring out what needs to be better, what can we improve, offering solutions, being proactive. If you're not doing those things, you are not going to get noticed. And by being the person who solves problems, you're making yourself invaluable. If you are following instructions only, you are one of many. So the only way you're going to get noticed by your bosses or the company is by the value that you bring in, and by your problem solving skills, and by taking actions without being asked. And that ties into my next point, which is advocate for yourself. No one's gonna do it for you. Obviously, your boss or your mentor can speed up the process of you progressing or your careers growing. They definitely could help and speed up the process, but it will never happen unless you do something about it. You have to be the one that speaks and talks about the things that you do all the time, especially at a corporate environment and a big space with lots of employees. If you don't tell your boss or the senior managers or management team, I'm doing this or I'm working, you need to remind them constantly, this is what I'm working on. Get feedback all the time, because your bosses and their bosses have their plates full. And unless you tell them or remind them constantly, they're not going to know what you're working on. So just being a good worker and sitting somewhere and just doing your job and thinking that's enough or that's going to get you noticed is absolutely wrong. And that brings me to my next point, which is performance does not equal promotion. Thinking that, oh, I'm doing my job so well and I'm going to automatically get promoted, or the promotion is just going to come to you. That's not going to happen. The performance has nothing to do with the growth and your career, the future of your career. It's politics and networking. These are the things that's going to get you noticed and that's going to get you promotion. Unless you speak about this with your boss and agree upon, okay, this is the job that I want, or I want to go for this senior position. What should I do? And get constant feedback. Obviously, there are a few variables involved, but the very first step is you having the conversation and doing the things that the job require for you to have before you can get promoted. This is something to keep in mind. And that brings me into networking, which I touched upon briefly. But if you're not networking, you're not going to get promotions or better opportunities or better salaries. If you're not constantly improving on your social skills and soft skills and not networking, you're falling behind. And the best opportunities are not on the job boards. The jobs are from people, and those jobs don't magically appear on the job boards. Somebody is advertising those jobs, and networking is what helps you get those jobs. My next point is never lose your ability to land a job.
Because if I lose my ability to catch fish, then you not gonna find me sexy no more. So you gotta smell fish on me so that you know I can catch fish so you can act right.
If you lose your ability to catch fish, you're done. Even if you have a great job and you think, okay, I'm good, I'm secure here, keep your resume updated and keep your job profile or LinkedIn profile up to date. What makes you valuable is your ability to land a new job. If you are able to land a new job, you are safe. Doesn't matter where you work or what you do. Test the waters, um, network. If you apply for new opportunities, the very first thing that you have to go through is the interview process. Sending your resume out to the companies, trying to have a successful job application and land an interview. If you haven't had an interview for a while, you are in for a surprise. People think that just doing the job well is going to take care of everything. Usually, that's not the case. You have to be able to present yourself and market yourself, be successful during these interviews. And those are all perishable skills. So, my advice is always be ready. If you lose your ability to easily get a job or land a job, you're in for trouble. One of the most important lessons that I've learned is that you need to document everything on a daily basis. On every project, there are tasks that you do. If you document everything and think about how would this go on your CV or your resume, how can I market this? How can I use this, in an interview? So if you actively think about those things and document everything, you'll have a record of all the things that you've done. That means when you want to have the next conversation around promotions or a raise that you want for your job, you have proof and you have hard facts. You can talk with proof and say, this is the list of the things that I've done. This is what we agreed upon, and I ticked all those boxes. If not, it will be hard to keep track of what you do. You're the person that is responsible for that. And thinking that you're going to remember all of those is just not realistic. If redundancy happens, or if you get the news that, oh, you're getting fired, how do you survive this financially? And this could be very difficult for a lot of people, myself included. And obviously, this is much more difficult on lots of my colleagues and friends who are supporting their family, and this is their livelihood. Considering I don't have a family to support, this is much easier on me than it is on them. I'd like to share a few things that has helped me deal with this difficult time. The first thing is create a buffer. What I mean by that is have a few months worth of your living expenses so that can cover you for a few months until you can figure out the next step and minimize the financial pressure on yourself and your family. That brings me to my next point, and that is to live below your means. And that means not try to upgrade your phone every year or get that new car as soon as you get a raise or things like that. So be mindful of that. Prepare for situations like this. Obviously, this is unfortunate and out of our control, but that's only to some extent. So the part that we can control is by not spending all the money and having a little bit of saving and relieve some of that financial pressure. Obviously, bills not going to pay themselves, the rent's still due. It could help if you try to be smart with your money. If you're not going to save anything and you just keep increasing your expenses with your salary, you're always at the same spot. So that's always helped me and I hope that this helps you too. My next point is cutting your unnecessary financial commitments and unnecessary expenses. as soon as possible. The second that I received that email, I knew that there is a chance that I will get fired within the next few weeks or months. I tried to figure out what can I take off of this list. So I wrote everything down, all the subscriptions, all the payments, all these monthly payments and direct debits, and tried to bring it to the absolute necessities. So only the things that I must have, and everything else is categorized as a luxury. So those are all gone. I recommend that you do the same. It's very important to stop the damage as soon as possible and try to make your money last as much as possible. One last thing I wanted to talk about, and I think the biggest lesson that I've learned was that I am not cut out for this type of environment. And it's not just because I was made redundant. There's a lot of reasons, but I am just not cut out for this type of environment. And I think it was such an eye-opening experience for me to hear that news, and that was really helpful. It gave me a clarity that I haven't had for years. I think this is a good thing for me, and it helps me figure out what I want to do and choose my next move more carefully. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to take risks. And I think if you want to be successful, you have to take risks. I don't know what is my next move. I don't know what kind of business I want to establish. I don't know what I want to do, but I definitely know that I want to be independent and I don't want to do this corporate thing anymore. It's definitely given me perspective and it's made me reflect, especially within this 2 weeks that I had between the two calls, from the very first consultation to the actual conversation around me being fired. So hopefully that helps you. And please let me know in the comments if you've been redundant recently or if you've heard of anyone that got recently fired. Share your experiences. I would love to hear your sugar coated version of the news that your company provided. Mine was changes within our team. And yeah, I would love to hear from you guys. And thanks for watching this video.